People might.
My neighbors are like breaking down the wall all of this.
Oh, good. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to my first go live. It's very exciting using StreamYard here. So thank you for joining us live or watching the rebroadcast. So before I introduce you to Shar here, our star creative solopreneur in this space, I had this like little special, my 70s glasses on today, just to kind of remind us that when we think about women as entrepreneurs, it's a pretty like radical idea. It's only been since like 1974 that we were able to, as women in the United States, through the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, get a credit card without our husband's signature, assuming we had a husband or we wanted a husband. That was like 5 years before I was born. And just 1 year before I was born in 1978, you still could legally fire a woman from her job if she was pregnant. So we've made a lot of movement in this space for creating opportunity for women, but it still doesn't mean that it's all super easy. So I brought Shar here today to chat a little bit with us about being an artist, which is hard enough in and of itself, as well as being a solopreneur and creating this new space that didn't exist in this way decades ago. So Shar, you want to tell me a little bit about This is Panache and introduce yourself a little bit more?
Sure, I can do that. So I have a business which is now about 3 years old. Yay!
Yay!
And it is it's kind of split between two different things. So on one side, I do some administrative consulting and have a few clients in that. And then on the other side, I do artwork and custom printed fabrics and paper art as well. So it's a little bit creative, little bit administrative, but all of it on my terms and as my own business, which is what I want.
Yeah, and I love that, the on your own terms, which I think is a huge reason a lot of people are pivoting into entrepreneurship and solopreneurship right now, and up until now, because you have that ability to really make your own way. So my first question for you, as by definition, a solopreneur is kind of like going it alone, which is super scary. What kind of things for you personally keep you up late at night worrying about or stressing about or just being afraid of, and how do you like deal with some of those feelings?
So I have anxiety in the first place. And I have this nice little thing called adjustment disorder as well. So it takes me a little bit longer to adjust to different situations.
Wow.
And that can hinder things sometimes. A lot of my general anxiety is around stuff like finances or, making sure my business is moving forward. Like last night, I was uploading some fabric designs and it wasn't working and I was really frustrated and I put away my computer and then I just couldn't let it go. I was like, no, I have to get this done. I want to get this done. And I was kind of driving myself crazy with it. And finally I took it back out and I calmed myself down and then put the fabric designs in there and got everything I needed to get ordered. But that kind of little stuff, it just, does keep me up at night. But I definitely like to ask myself, exactly what kind of consequences it's going to have. Okay, do you have to get this done at midnight today? Or can you, do it tomorrow? Yeah. Because it's kind of going back to that on my own terms thing. I've worked myself into the ground before, and that's really not a spot that I want to be in again. So I very much go back to, okay, yes, I can put that off, and I give myself permission to do it, which I think is another really important thing to ensure that you're doing.
Yeah, and I want to take an opportunity to just really thank you for sharing this really deeply personal struggle that you've had, because I know that it's going to be incredibly empowering for so many people that we see a lot of times this messaging around who is a successful entrepreneur. And it can be like, oh, look, shiny, outgoing, has to be super flashy. That's the only type of successful human in the entrepreneurial space. I'm not going to mention names, but I'm sure there's a couple of images that pop into your mind. And that's just not true. That is absolutely not true. And it's can be even more supportive in that space when you know yourself and you have the power and the freedom to say, okay, I can't do this right now because I need to take care of me. Fill in the blank of what this is. Or you're like, I'm feeling really good. I feel like working an 18-hour day, but I know that I am really going to be the one who is going to benefit from it as long as I know that I'm being, safe and kind of like not being abusive to myself.
Right.
But you get to control how fast you go, right? Is it 60 miles an hour? Is it 30 miles an hour? You get to choose. And I think that is so incredible and so freeing for women.
Yeah.
Right. So as like an entrepreneur, tell me more about like your timing. Did you think that when you started your business, it was the perfect time? It was a little too late? It was a little too soon?
I would say for me, it was the perfect time. So I often feel like I've lived several lifetimes, which is kind of strange. Like think back to, when I lived in Chicago and I was like, oh yeah, that happened. Okay, wait. But it feels so, disconnected from where I am now. But I think it was, I was kind of driven to that point, if that makes sense. So I got to a point where I had to stop doing what I was doing. And I was absolutely like, oh, I could totally do this, trying to talk myself into it. And I was like, no, I can't do that. Like, I would never be able to support myself that way. I don't have any kind of like savings or backup or anything like that. And then I just sat down one day and I was like, but why couldn't I? Like, are there extremely valid reasons why I can't do it? Are finances a worry? Yes. But is there a way around that? Like, I have student loans. Can I maybe contact my student loan place and say, hey, I'm not making so much anymore. Is there a different plan I can be on?
Yeah.
So it was stuff like that. And I finally said, yes, I can do it. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to, go for it. And I'm really, really glad I did. And my parents were very supportive as well. They were like, you need to get out of that situation. Like, we'll help you in whatever way you need to help. We need to help you, which is good. And I don't think if it had happened at any other point in my life, that I would kind of have some of the skills that I've fallen back on or the knowledge that I've needed to do what it is that I'm doing.
Yeah. And it like something that was really resonating for me as you were sharing this is the courage to jump. Mm-hmm. Right. It's when you were about to make that huge leap, were you able to make it because you didn't feel fear?
Yes, I was to the point where I was like very numb inside. I didn't really have a lot of emotion going on, which was bad enough. And I was just like, yeah, I don't really care anymore. I need to do it. So it was that I, just like, nope, okay, nope, doing it.
Yeah, fascinating. So like you were like to a point maybe of desperation,
yeah,
where you felt that the other options were so terrible, like
yes,
like soul sucking that this was like your best opportunity to survive. And that's really intriguing when we think about our things that are going to scare us, things that give us apprehension because they feel really big, until it comes to the point when it is do or die, right? If you either feel that way because of circumstances outside of yourself or inside of yourself, where you're like, this is the only way forward. Either it's it's jump, or here's the big ball of doom, like what's the Indiana Jones, right?
Oh yeah. It's like rolling towards you. That's kind of what I felt like. I was
And
like,
you're like,
this is my job, like rolling me down. Yeah.
So you're like, okay, let's do this. And sometimes that happens where you've waited so long and feel so trapped and suffocated that jump is the only chance at life that you feel like you have.
Yes.
Because everything is behind you, is coming towards your way, is the big boulder of doom. And the way forward, even though it may be unknown, is much better than the boulder behind you that you do know. So I want to know, when thinking back kind of on your journey as a solopreneur, what was one of like the biggest challenges that you faced that you felt was more uniquely because of your presented gender as a woman? Was there one that kind of you faced that you felt that was probably because you were a woman more than maybe other times?
So I would say the situation that I was facing that drove me into becoming a solopreneur was inherently something because I was female. So I was kind of caught in the middle of this huge sexual harassment thing, which is not a great place to be for anyone.
Yeah.
And I realized that I had kind of issues working with men as well. Now, like, all my clients are female because I choose to put myself in that spot because that's where I feel most comfortable.
Yeah.
So I've kind of had to deal with that. And then I think as well, I think sometimes if people see that you're a woman, they don't really think that you could be highly educated, or myself as being a creative, they don't like, oh, I'm sure you're creative because you don't have anything else that you're doing, or there's no way that you could have an advanced degree. And I feel that sometimes that's kind of put upon me because I'm a woman and like I sew for a living, now, and people are just like, oh, you craft. Okay. Like that's all you do and all you have headspace for. So, which is totally not true. I have a master's degree. Like, I'd like to be given credit, which I think is sometimes very difficult for people to give women credit.
Yeah, especially in something that has a history of being a pink labor type of thing, like textile art.
Mm-hmm.
It's art, but it's not something that, let's say, male artists of the 14th century were necessarily using as a medium.
Right.
And so to some people, they feel that it has less value because you're not using oil on canvas as your modality for art. So it could definitely see how that would be misconstrued. And one of the things that you were saying that I wanted to come back to is having that ability to decide what's good for you and then being able to do what's good for you. I think so many times that people in more traditional organizations, they know what's good for them, but they don't have any power to change that reality inside of the organization. And like you were saying, when you were at, before you came on your journey as a solopreneur, that was you. You knew what was good for you, but you weren't given the power or the ability to change that reality. And so, like many people, just left. Like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
and that's it's such a brave act to be able to not only see something's wrong and have awareness around it, but to act on it. And I think that is something that previous generations of women just didn't have.
Yes.
Sexual harassment was totally legal, right? Just like look the other way until the late 70s, and that was not that long ago. And it boggles my mind at how recent that was. And of course, this is still happening, but even to the point of having to make a law that at least started the conversation of, hey, this is not okay. That didn't even exist before the 70s. So I think we're making a lot of movement in this space, but obviously we have a long way to go.
Yes, definitely a long way to go.
Right. When you think about kind of conditioning and coming back to an idea of we're bringing so much emotional and just legacy baggage with us because of the messages that we've gotten from media, from ourselves, from our families around where a woman's place is. And this is definitely starting to change. And we're, of course, definitely seeing huge movement in like our Gen Zers and younger. But for me, I got a lot of messaging that I had to deal with as an entrepreneur, both just for me talking to me of, like, who do you think you are? Why do you get to be an entrepreneur? This isn't for people like you. And that took a while to really move through, because these weren't messages that I believed from myself, but these were definitely messages that were knocking around in there and talking to me because of so much of that outer messaging. Did you find anything in your kind of journey that was similar to that?
Yeah, so I think from an early age, I was against everything that was kind of perceived as like normal, what you should do. It was very much like, okay, I wasn't one of those people who's like, oh, someday I'm going to get married. And like, I wasn't the girl who looked through the little like bridal magazines or anything like that. I was very much like, I'm going to do stuff myself. Super, super independent. Like, don't help me. Like, somebody at the airport wants to help me carry my bag that's as tall as I am. And I'm like, no, leave me alone. I can do it myself. Like,
do what I want.
I do it. No, it takes a lot for me to ask people to like help me and stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm glad that things are changing and that the norms are getting a little bit more flexible, if you will. But yeah, I think when I was originally looking at art schools, and my father told me like, that's not a profession. Like, it's not something you can do. And I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a creative person and that's where I feel comfortable and what I'd like to do. And like, no, you can't do that. Like, why am I not allowed to do that? I don't understand.
Yeah, and the messages of you're not allowed to, or especially around the arts or anything creative,
Yes.
It's this knee-jerk reaction to say that, oh, that's not worthwhile, or that doesn't make any money, and then entree NFTs.
Yeah. Let me prove it to you.
Right. Although that's an extreme example, but it's with the complete changing of everything into a digital space and bringing together a more global community. Sure, okay, if you had like one textile artist in a very rural town in Nebraska with a population of 900 people. Okay, you probably couldn't support yourself with just textile art with 900 people that were the only people you could sell to.
Right.
But that's not the way the world works anymore. Like, you have the ability to, I know that you sell your art both in person and online, and that allows you to reach not just people in your specific community that could physically see you, but like the global community. And I think that we're not giving people enough credit for seeing opportunity just because no one has gone there before.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And we have all of these stories around the pioneers that came out for gold in California and Oregon Trail. And, we romanticize all of this, colonizing. That's another conversation. But like colonizing of other people's lands. And there was no path forward, literally, because they had to, go through and create a path. Okay. Yeah. And we romanticize how great that was. Yet when we, especially as women, say, we're going to do something totally weird and, kind of different, and it doesn't really exist, but we're going to figure it out, we're instantly told that can't possibly work. That is such a bad idea because no one else has done it. And I think that in my experience, of course, we're very generalized here, many times when men have that same idea, they either are supported emotionally or verbally, or given VC funding.
Yeah. I was just going to say, if you're like a rich white guy, here you go. Here's like $10 billion to do what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some horrendous ideas be funded. And so I think if someone could stand up and get money for Sharknado, I think we all need to find the confidence to know that even if it's a bad idea, we should still see if someone will fund it if we believe in it, right?
Yes.
Have the courage and the passion as the people that got Sharknado made.
Right? Make your own Sharknado. And it's like, there's like 5 sequels or something too, which is insane. Like, let's make another one. Okay.
Yeah, make your own Sharknado in this world. Well, as we're kind of coming to the end of our chat today, if you had anything to say to a newbie entrepreneur or solopreneur that is either early in their journey or kind of like thinking about it, they're maybe still in their corporate job, or they're maybe still in school and they're kind of thinking about this as an option, what kind of advice would you have for them?
So I would say a couple things. First, don't be afraid to give yourself permission to do whatever it is you want to do. If you want to test, if you want to dabble, go for it. You can always, you have 15 side hustles. Fine. If you can make ends meet and you feel comfortable in that lifestyle, then go for it. And I would say, second, don't be afraid to say no. I think a lot of people they feel kind of like I was, like trapped, or they feel like I've had a lot of women come up to me and say, I've never negotiated a salary for myself before. Like, I've never done something like that before. And so I think giving yourself permission and then saying like, no, I'm not going to work at, 50% less than my coworker is anymore. You can do that. You have the power to say no to absolutely anything in your life. And you can definitely do it. And I think last, probably, don't be afraid to take a leap. You can do it. Go for it. Like, you don't have to have like $10,000 worth of savings, or you can find a way. I think even now, more now in the digital age than before, you can find a way to make things work. And there's so much opportunity out there. So don't be afraid to go for what you want to.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Char. If you want to learn more about her art or some of her creative consulting, you can find her at thisispanache.com. And then I can also put in the link below this feed. All right. Well, thank you so much, Char. It was so fantastic chatting, and we'll be back next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.